Hi, I'm Joe and welcome to another micro lesson. In this one I thought we would take a look at bar chords and just barring in general. What is barring? That's when you basically take one finger and you're going to play multiple notes. You're basically going to bar your finger across multiple strings to pick up different notes in a chord. So a typical example of this would be a big major bar chord like this. You can also have minor bar chords as well. And if you notice what's happening here is my first finger is barring across all the strings, again, to pick up more than one note in the chord. The most famous one that you get started with generally is the F chord, which kind of looks like this. Now, let me show you two ways to kind of get into this F chord because I think it shows the basic concepts of barring well and also gets your mindset for the amount of pressure that you need to press down with your fingers. The first and easiest way to get into an F chord would be to start with your C chord that you already probably know. And just take your first two fingers that you see in front of you and move them one set of strings down. Now we have an F chord here. We have the notes F, A, and C. And if we played the open E, we actually have a pretty F major 7 chord. But we don't want that for this F chord. What we want to do is pick up this F note on the high E string. And in order to do that, I need to bar. I need to take my first finger, bend it back, and round it back a little bit to lay it flat across the B string and the E string to pick up the C and the F note. So an easy way to do that is kind of roll your finger back. You start with your F major 7 that you kind of got into from coming from the C chord, and then roll your first finger back. If you notice, I'm not going flat back, I'm actually rolling it a little bit back. So I'm having a little bit of an angle here. And now I'm able to pick up that F on the top. Now, the key to this is don't press too hard. You gotta find the right amount of pressure to press down, and that goes for all bar chords. You know, a lot of times when you first get started, you're just really strangling the guitar, like you're really digging in, and that's leading to, you know, it's building up calluses, true, but it's also hurting your fingers. You need to just find the right amount of pressure to press on a note. And one way to do that is start really light and then start to add pressure until the note rings out. And when it rings out, that's when you know you have enough pressure. So again, that was one way to get into the F chord, which is coming from the C, going down one set of strings, and then rolling your first finger back to get that bar up top. Another way to do it is in reverse. Why don't you start with the bar? So take your first finger and put it on the first fret of the B string to pick up the C note, and the first fret of the high E string to pick up the F note. You just play those two notes together. You're working on your barring technique right there. And again, start practicing by not even, just lay your fingers over the strings at first, and then slowly apply pressure until you have the notes ringing out. Now when you have the notes ring out, that's the amount of pressure that you need for that chord. Now you can add your second finger down on the second fret of the G string, and you're just going to play this triad. That's still a full F chord. And then as you get more and more relaxed, go ahead and put your third finger down on the third fret of the D string to pick up that F note in the bass. And now you have your F chord there. So again, just start practicing by gently pressing down on the strings at first. And again, find that magic spot. Now, when you get more adventurous here, what you really want to do is take your first finger and go across all the strings. And the same rule applies here. You're going to basically putting enough pressure. And just try this. Just take your first finger and bar across all the strings first. And just play it until it just feels right and you're not really killing your hand. You don't have to dig in too hard. Again, just finding that right amount of pressure. And then when you're ready, go ahead and put your E chord shape down. I say it's an E chord because your guitar nut kind of acts like a bar for you when you're playing these chords up top here, these open chords. And you can take the same shape, and if you use a bar technique by sliding your first finger down, so this first finger now kind of acts like your bar of your guitar, you can use the same chord shapes, and that's how you get your big F major bar chord, or the bar chord shape that's movable. So now you can take the shape and move it anywhere. So this is why barring is very important, because you can take similar shapes and move them all around the neck and have different chords. So for this technique here, if you notice when I was playing the F chord, notice where my thumb is at here when I'm playing it this way. It's up top. Well, in order to get the pressure that you're going to need for your first finger to play the full F bar chord, you really need to tuck your thumb down. And I'm putting it behind my guitar neck, kind of right in the center here. And imagine like you have a little ball sitting in between this little empty spot here. So you basically, for this full bar chord, you need to make sure you bring your whole hand down and you're tilting your wrist down, putting enough pressure with your first finger, and then you're able to play the F chord that way. If you also notice, watch your other fingers, especially your middle finger here. If you notice, my middle finger is kind of perpendicular to the strings. It's exactly straight up and down. It's not leaned down. That'll mute the notes behind that behind that string, and you don't want that. So you really want this second finger is kind of the key to make sure it's arched properly and kind of perpendicular to the fretboard to make sure that rings out true. And again, just find that right amount of pressure. So one way maybe to graduate into that full bar chord is to start with an A chord. You might be familiar with your A chord shape like this. Well, if we take our first finger and just bar it across those second fret of those strings, we have an A chord. And again, this is about finding the right amount of pressure. You're not pushing too hard, because that also put the guitar out of tune. You just want to press firm enough to get those notes to ring out. And you can play your A chord that way to get used to that feeling of having your thumb behind the neck and the first finger laying over more than one string. Then when you get comfortable with that, also try this with your third finger. Well, why do I suggest that? Well, remember we talked about earlier, this is kind of the bar, the nut is the bar of your guitar here for these bar chords. If you basically take the shape and slide it up, you now have the bar chord shape starting with the root on the 5th string instead of the root for this shape on the 6th string. And this just opens up a whole new world of opportunities for you. And if you notice what I just did there, I have smaller hands, so not only do I play the bar chord this way, I sometimes use my pinky instead to bar those notes. So those are just some tips and ideas to get used to it. Again, the main takeaway here is to find that exact right amount of pressure that you need to get these bar chords going. As always, I hope you found some value in these videos. If you did, consider subscribing down below, hit the like button, and knock on the bell and you'll be notified when the next video comes out in the series. As always, I wish you a great day.